Death by inmate when prisoners kill. I'm going to bring you some fucking good entertainment, people. Now, in this episode, I'm going to talk about 10 wrong'uns who have been offed inside of prison. And why is there a rise and an increase in prisoner death? Well, because there's a rise in bacons inside of prison, and there's a rise in people serving sentences that they don't care whether they get time added on or not. So I have got a lot of visuals that I'm going to put up on the screen and talk a lot about the individual offences. Like I say, there's 10 different inmates, or should I say ex-inmates, bacons, who have been offed inside of prison and they are no more. So the first one, which is the most recent one, is the bacon, Mr. Ian Huntley. And fellow inmate Anthony Russell, 43, has been charged with his murder. And I'm going to say this again. What I said the last time, I'll tell you what, I'll take his fucking disgusting face off the screen because you'll not want to sit and look at him. But Anthony Russell, when people were coming on and saying in the comments, what a hero, can we send him money? Can we do anything for him? No, you can't, because he's an absolute wrong'un himself. Hopefully he gets the treatment himself one day. He's in prison for 3 murders. He murdered his friend's mother, in case you went to the police. And then he went and raped and murdered a pregnant woman. So he also murdered that unborn child inside of the lady. What an absolute wrong'un. But he's going to be living out his sorry days inside of the segregation units and the CSCs because of what he's done. So he will be suffering as well. But I'm going to add the number one bacon basher to the stage. No other than Sir Robert Maudsley. And Robert Maudsley is the UK's longest serving prisoner. And he's a quadruple killer. He's considered so dangerous, he has spent more than 17,000 consecutive days in solitary confinement. Now, take that into consideration, people. 17,000 days in consecutive solitary confinement. He was sentenced to life in 1974 for the manslaughter of John Farrell, a 30-year-old absolute wrong'un. So he got sentenced to life imprisonment. Then he went to HMP. He went to Broadmoor Hospital because he was deemed criminally insane. But whilst he was inside the hospital, he killed another bacon, him and another inmate, took a bacon into they're not classed as cells, took him into one of the patients' rooms, even though they are still prisoners, but they're classed as patients when they're in mental hospitals. Him and another inmate called Cheeseman, but I do believe Cheeseman was actually a bacon as well. And they took him in, tortured him for hours and hours, and then took his life. So obviously, they knew he was against bacons. He's already done too. So what did they do? They sent him to Monster Mansion, a prison that is full of bacons. It was 90% bacons, 10% normal prisoners like Maudsley. He was a normal prisoner offering the bacons. Was it a setup? Did they send him there because they knew what he was going to do? Did they want more bacons to die? Did they want blood on their hands? But whilst inside of HMP Wakefield, he went on a rampage, and on the day that he'd done it, he was intending to take up to 7 bacons. And he did take one in the pad, smashed him to bits, garroted him, and stuck him under the bed. Then he was trying to entice more inmates into his pad. He was walking out the door, looking out down onto the landings, and they must have sensed death in the air, and they wouldn't go nowhere near him. So he went into the pad of another sleeping bacon, lying. I don't know if he's asleep. I think he was just lying on his bed. He's went in, attacked him, smashed his head ferociously off the side of the wall, popped his head wide open. His brains were hanging out, and he did have a plastic spoon in his hand, what he was using to stab him, because he stabbed him up, garroted him, smashed his brains off the wall, blood all over, blood and claret all over the place. And when someone walked past the pad, they had a look in. Morsley standing there with the spoon in his hand, and the rumours started circulating. And this is why he got the nickname Spoons and Hannibal the Cannibal, because they were saying whoever looked in went and told the other prisoners that Morsley, Sir Robert, was standing there eating the man's brains. But that was a made-up story, as is the Perspex box. So Morsley's now 72-year-old, and he still carries the nickname Hannibal the Cannibal for that exact reason that I've just said. And they said he was put in a glass cell, and the press has put loads of pictures online and in the news articles and whatever of a Hannibal-style Perspex glass cell. When that wasn't the case, he did have a specially built cell, which was 2 cells converted into one. One was where he had his shower and his toilet, and the other one where he had his bed. And at the front, there was a Perspex door so they could look in and see what he was doing and monitor him. And that was the reason why they started calling him Hannibal the Cannibal. So that was 3 bacons that he'd done, obviously one on the outside. So there were Huntley plus those 3 was 4. And the one that set off the trend again was no other than Ian Watkins. Now, this was a tremendous, shall we say, often inside of high security prison. So the disgraced lost prophet singer Ian Watkins was killed after being stabbed in the neck just outside of his cell at HMP Wakefield on October the 1st last year. Watkins, who was 48, who rose to fame in the 2000s after the new metal band had several top 40 hits, was serving a 29-year sentence for a string of offences. And those offences, what he was in prison for, were absolutely disgusting. Oh, you can't put it into words. There is not one single word for it, apart from he was a revolting human being who would never change. The only way someone like him is going to stop doing what he's doing is exactly what happened. The likes of these perpetrators, predators, deserve the death sentence by the courts. And if the courts don't dish it out, then guess what? The inmates do. So 2 men, Rashid Goodell and Samuel Dodsworth. Rashid was 25-year-old and Samuel 43, have denied the murders and are due to stand trial at Leeds Crown Court next month. So I will keep you updated on what actually happens with that. But again, these 2 inmates were getting applauded. They were saying, how do we send them money? And again, one of them was actually a bacon. The other one, I believe, was Rashid Goodell, 25, from London, if I remember rightly when I'd done the video. And Samuel Dodds with 43, I think he was the bacon. So inside of Wakefield Prison, which I've mentioned previously, they have bacons mixed in with normal location prisoners. And it is now 60-40, 60% bacons, 40% normal location prisoners. And sometimes these normal location lads get sent there and they don't want to be there. So if you're sent there, you're doing a massive sentence or you're doing life without parole and they won't move you, don't want to be in that prison. How do you get moved? Exactly what they're doing in this instance. Off a bacon, and then they certainly will be moving you out of that prison, although you will be spending a considerable amount of time in the block. So that was Ian Watkins' murder. He, like I've just mentioned, he was an absolute disgusting wrong'un. So the other one who was murdered was Kyle Bevans. And we all know what happened with Kyle Bevans. He was another prisoner inside of HMP Wakefield, who was attacked and off in the most delightful, I shouldn't say that, in the most righteous way, shall we say. So Kyle Bevans was actually in prison for murdering a 2-year-old. And that despicable wrong'un, he was only 33-year-old who had been jailed for life for murdering his partner's 2-year-old daughter, Lola James, in Pembrokeshire in 2020. And he was found dead in his cell in HMP Wakefield on the 5th of November. So a hearing, when it went to Leeds Crown Court, was told that Mark Fellows, we all know who Mark Fellows is, a notorious hitman who killed Paul Massey, 45-year-old, Lee Newell, 56, and David Taylor, 63, are due to stand trial on the 2nd of June. But again, the ones that killed this absolute wrong'un are serving massive sentences. Lee Newell, I'll put a picture up of him. Lee Newell is the one on the right-hand side. He is also, this is his second murder inside of prison. He is serving life without parole for murdering another bacon, which I'm going to speak about straight after this one. Forget about the man on the left. He was the one that was also involved in a murder. But Lee Newell on the right is responsible. This is his second murder inside of high security prison. He's serving life without parole. Nothing to lose. But a bit of a reputation again, because like I've said, he's a wrong'un as well. Yeah, he killed his elderly neighbour for no apparent reason, all because he wanted some money for his addiction. And Mark Fellows is serving life without parole for the murders of Paul Massey and Kinsella. And he is never getting out of prison, and he has been targeted himself. So has he done this to get off the wings and get put on the unit where he will be living, shall we say, a more safer, a more relaxed life away from all the chaos that goes on inside of these prisons, and he'll not be having to look over his shoulder. And David Taylor is serving a life sentence, and he's also waiting to go on trial for stabbing a CID, a copper, a detective inside of HMP Franklin. He came up to interview him. They were on a special visit. He smuggled down a makeshift tool and stabbed the copper on the visit. So Lee Newell there, who I've just said there on the right-hand side, is serving that life sentence for the murder of Saban Anoir. And that one was in HMP Long Lawton. So Saban Anoir was strangled to death with a pair of tracksuit bottoms in his cell at HMP Long Lawton in February 2013. The court heard Anoir, who was serving at least 23 years for the murder of his partner's 2-year-old daughter, was lulled into a false sense of security and didn't resist when the killers entered his cell because he thought he was being held hostage. So fellow inmates, Gary Smith, who was that one on the left-hand side that was on the screen, I'll just put him back up so you can see who I'm on about. That one there, which was Gary Smith. He was 48 at the time, and Lee Newell was 44 at the time of that murder. They were both later given whole life sentences for the chilling and cold-blooded murder. Jurors heard that Smith calmly made Newell a cup of hot chocolate during a standoff with guards after the murder. So that is the end of Saban Anoir. But again, he's inside for killing a little one. So let me know your thoughts, people. Was this justified? The next one is, where's he at? I've got that many pictures up here. Here we go. Damian Folks. This isn't a bacon, by the way, people. I'm just putting him up to let you know what he actually done. Damian Folks, back in 2010, was the one that sliced open Ian Huntley, slashing him across the neck with a makeshift knife in a separate attack. Now, when people say he's a hero inside a prison for what he's done, this one, you can't say that because he wasn't a bacon. He was in prison serving a life sentence for armed robberies. He was only doing a few-year tariff. He could have been out of prison within a few years, but he seen his chance with Ian Huntley in the hospital department of HMP Franklin. He sliced him across the neck, and Huntley nearly lost his life. He had dozens and dozens of stitches off that. He needed, 21 stitches he needed following the attack. But the thing that got him the big sentence was, because he could have gotten away and said, he could have tried to say that it was, 2 seconds, I'll put myself back on the screen as well. He could have easily gotten away with saying, I didn't intend to kill him, I just wanted to hurt him, and it would have been a Section 18. But he did say afterwards, there was that much blood all over, he said, is he dead? I hope so. So that was his fate sealed. But well, for that, he got an actual 20 recommendation of 20 years on top. And he got moved straight down to HMP Full Sutton, where he came across no other than Colin Hatch. So Colin Hatch is an absolute predator. He was in prison for killing 7-year-old Sean Williams. He was serving 17 years in Full Sutton prison. 17 years for that horrific attack on that 7-year-old boy. He was an absolute fucking wrong'un. He was recommended for Broadmoor after an earlier attack in which he almost choked to death an 8-year-old boy. But medical staff at the secure hospital did not consider him sufficiently dangerous enough, and they fucking let him out. He murdered Sean shortly after his release on parole from a 3-year sentence for the choking assault. A 3-year sentence for choking an 8-year-old, trying to murder him. And then so shortly after his release, when he was released on parole, he went and killed that 7-year-old boy. Absolute fucking despicable wrong'un. But like we say, people, he got his karma because he came in contact with Damian Fawkes, who's psychopathic. Damian Fawkes didn't get his entire jollies out of Ian Huntley because when he was saying, is he dead? He wasn't dead. So they sent him down to HMP Full Sutton, where he came across that wrong'un, Colin Hatch. The court heard that at one point during the attack, he told the guards, he's a nonce, he doesn't deserve to live. Fawkes was initially charged with Hatch's murder, but pleaded guilty to manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. Because he took him in his pad, garroted him. Guards actually came to his Hatch to see Hatch, but Hatch was no more. His karma caught up with him. So, people, this is the next one I'm going to talk about. Child rapist Mitchell Harrison. And this absolute wrong'un was disemboweled during a ghastly and gruesome murder at Durham's Franklin prison in October 2011. Two inmates, Michael Parr and Nathan Mann, slashed his throat with a scalpel made from plastic cutlery and a razor blade and cut open his stomach and planned to eat his liver, but did not do so. So I'll put the picture up of these two inmates here who done the actual murder. So there we have Michael Parr and Nathan Mann. The court heard that Mann, then 23 and Parr 32, had fantasized about beheading other prisoners and cutting out their stomachs. Mann was already serving life for a double murder, was described by a psychiatrist as a remorseless, callous psychopath who harbored cannibalistic urges and was one of the most dangerous men in the criminal justice system. Harrison, 23, was jailed in January 2010 after he admitted raping a 13-year-old girl. So that absolute predator ended up inside of HMP Franklin, and he never came out alive. But these two inmates that were down on the bacon wings, Michael Parr on the left and Nathan Mann, these two wrong'uns as well, that were down on the bacon wings because obviously they had to be down on the bacon wings to take the life of a rapist, Mitchell Harrison, the absolute wrong'un. But these two here are absolute wrong'uns themselves. They were in, one of them, I cannot remember the exact stories, but the pair of them were wrong'uns. And that is all we need to know. Wrong'uns, often wrong'uns. Now, the next one I'm going to do is Richard Huckle. I've done the story on Richard Huckle. Yeah, I do believe it was about 2 videos back. 2 of the most recent videos. Richard Huckle was Britain's worst bacon. He abused up to 200 Malaysian kids. Britain's worst pedo, that's him. Richard Huckle was tied up, raped, and strangled with an electrical cable by fellow inmate Paul Fitzgerald at HMP Full Sutton in October 2019. Huckle, 33, was serving 22 life sentences after admitting 71 charges of sex abuse against up to 200 Malaysian kids. A court heard Fitzgerald said he wanted Huckle to feel what his victims felt in the 78-minute attack, which Hull Crown Court heard was designed to humiliate and degrade the victim. So the predator turns into the prey, and he was absolutely taken and given some of his own treatment. The judge said prosecutor said Fitzgerald had described Huckle as Britain's worst pedo and felt that it was poetic justice. Disturbingly, he said he would have liked to have cooked and eaten parts of Huckle's body and would have gone on to kill more inmates, but was having too much fun. Fitzgerald, who suffers from psychopathy, antisocial personality disorder, and gender identity disorder, had previous convictions for violent and SAX offences, starting from the age of 13. So he was an absolute wrong'un himself. He was given a life sentence, was told he must serve at least 34 years inside of prison. So that was 10 inmates that have been offed inside of prison. And prison justice at its finest, death by inmate. Like I've said, especially that Colin Hatch tried to strangle an 8-year-old boy, was given a measly 3 years inside of Broadmoor. And they let him out and said he was no longer a danger. How fucking wrong were they? Whilst on parole, he murdered a 7-year-old boy after fucking doing things to him. But he got his karma inside of prison. The judges didn't give him the fucking sentence that he deserved. The prisoners did. But I just wanted to come on and let you all know what happens inside of prison, and that these bacons do not have a nice time, and a lot of them do meet their maker, get their karma inside of prison. If the judges can't dish out death sentences and the inmates do, then that's just what happens inside of prison, people. So, people, I'm going to leave that one there for now. Hopefully you are enjoying this content. And I'm sure you are, because you tune in for the little piggy bacon basher with these gloves on. Boom, boom, bash. We've got to make some light of this, people. We've got to have some entertainment. We don't get fucking good views for nothing. And we all love a bit of bacon bashing. Anyways, people, I'm going to leave that one there for now. Do let me know in the comment section what you think of prison justice. Is prison justice a must? Is the inmates dishing out the sentence that the judge should have dished out? But I'm going to leave that one there for now, people. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. But most importantly, people, stay safe.